That's the pipeline. High carb vegan, low carb vegan, drink your own piss. Hey guys, I wanted to watch this No Longer Vegan 2018 to 2023, The Real Reason Plant-Based Dieters Quit by Plant-Based News. I don't know a lot about plant-based news. I just have a feeling that I'm not a big fan. I think maybe I remember them promoting a lot of the low-fat vegan doctors, maybe some other stuff too. I don't know. But I wanted to check out this video and maybe it's good.
What I've Learned put out a video called Vegan Diets Don't Work. It featured many ex-vegans that I've personally known. In this video, I'm going to tell you the truth about these influencers, how they came out as ex-vegan.
Is this going to be a they were never really vegan situation?
For full transparency, I've been vegan for over 10 years. I first became interested in the plant-based lifestyle after reading a book called The China Study, which showcased how the longest-lived cultures historically consumed a predominantly plant-based diet.
So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I don't think it's a particularly evidence-based book, and I think you can make a good case for eating a plant-based diet. By plant-based, I mean majority plants without referring to the China Study at all. Redpin Reviews, which I love, they review diet books like the China Study. I highly recommend checking out their review. It's not super positive. It's definitely not the worst book they've reviewed. I think they reviewed the carnivore one, Paul Saladino, and Grain Brain. And just recently, they did an intuitive eating book. Scientific accuracy, 33%. Healthfulness, 50%. Honestly, I'm surprised it's that high. Telling people obesity is fine and that dieting is super terrible. Actually, yeah, maybe not the healthiest book.
Through this journey, I've had the opportunity to meet many of the content creators that ditched their vegan diets. I've met people like Nikocado Avocado, for instance, before he started a Spain-hungry ex-vegan downward health spiral.
I've been asked about Nikocado a lot. I don't think I've talked about him at all since when he was first questioning staying vegan. I made a couple videos and then I think he quit. Maybe I made a video, but I haven't talked about his evolution. Most people watch him for the train wreck. I don't think a lot of people are actually being influenced by him and like eating more food because it's cool. I mean, he looks a mess. He's clearly unhealthy. What's the point of talking about it? It's like Eugenia Cooney. Like everyone knows she's unhealthy. Like that's what she wants. What can you do? It's the people in the middle, right? The people who seem really healthy but are saying grains are bad for you actually, right? That's the kind of stuff I think should be addressed. Not saying you can't address Eugenia Cooney or Nikocado. I just don't think they're that bad in terms of influence because the vast majority of people would look at either of them and say, oh, no thank you.
Well, I want to start with Alex from Cosmic Skeptic.
He talks about the post, he talks about the video, so clearly he has seen the video where Alex goes into IBS. He's really struggled with IBS even more so on a vegan diet than he did when he was not vegan, and he's found it really hard to manage his symptoms, so he's eating animal products again.
IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, which people have to varying degrees. I've suffered with it quite severely for most of my life. I found that in practice, despite obviously having a lot invested in this, I wasn't able to make it work.
And instead of talking about that, doesn't even mention it at all. He implies that Alex really just stopped caring about animals.
In his message where he revealed he was quitting the vegan lifestyle, for example, he refers to sea animals as seafood, which is a simple and perhaps subconscious attempt at distancing himself from the fact that these animals are sentient beings.
So yeah, he started eating animals because he just didn't care anymore. That's what I'm getting from that, which is just really shitty. Honestly, it's really, really shitty. Even if that's what you think, at least present all of the evidence, right? At least don't ignore the main point of Alex's video. So yeah, prediction, I am going to despise this video. So now he's moving on to Elise. She's very much the it's my journey and peace and love, toxic positivity, I think is the perfect kind of description for her channel. And the going from the extreme, right? She was low fat raw vegan, not just raw vegan, but low fat raw vegan, almost exclusively fruit, to carnivore. I don't know if she follows a carnivore diet. I don't think she does, but she did it for 30 days. Maybe one of these people who are just always looking for perfect health, and they're always going to be looking because you're never going to find it.
We see the same thing with Elise, another ex-vegan YouTuber previously known as Raw Alignment, where all of a sudden sentient cows become beef.
It's definitely in your best interest to source 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef.
I see what he's saying, and, maybe that's true. I mean, look, I've been vegan for a long time, and I still call animals it. Does that mean I'm devaluing animals and I'm going to start eating meat soon? No, I've always called them it. In my 14 years of vegan, I only just started really making an effort to call them he or she, maybe in the last year or so, when I saw, I can't remember who, it's a vegan activist I really like. He talked about that on Twitter, just reading through, or maybe he was talking about he wrote a paper and it was reviewed and they were correcting him saying, no, it's not he, she, it's it. That kind of tells you everything you need to know about how we view animals, right? Point is, I don't think that's like a watertight argument. I wouldn't be surprised if in a lot of cases that does come first, the no longer caring and maybe looking for reasons. And maybe that's one of the tells. Instead of calling cow meat, calling it beef. Maybe. I just have a hard time taking his argument seriously, given that he has clearly gone out of his way to lie by omission, to leave out pertinent information, to prove the real reason people are no longer vegan. I don't know, man.
And then all too often, fish and eggs are used as the gateway back into non-vegan lifestyle.
They tried animal products, some salmon and eggs.
Adding in fish and eggs.
Some eggs, and then that evolved into wild-caught fish.
I'm eating my first egg today.
And it's not just online influencers. Around the time Miley Cyrus unfollowed us,
Around the time Miley Cyrus unfollowed us. I don't know why that's so funny to me. Why would you even bring that up? Yeah, fish and eggs, it often does start with fish and or eggs, which I think hurts his argument that they don't care about animals anymore and that's why they're no longer vegan. If they didn't care about animals, why would they even go for fish and egg first? Why would they go for the more comfortable animals to eat, right? Fish aren't as cute and human-like as cows and chickens and pigs and whatnot. And eggs, well, it's not meat, it's not the animal. Why would they even choose those if they just didn't care about animal suffering anymore? Why wouldn't they just go straight for beef? And then the other argument would be for health reasons. When we look at least observational data, typically fish does not have a positive correlation with cancer like other animal products do. And certain fish have lots of omega-3s, lots of DHA. Maybe they're doing it from a, health standpoint.
Was vegan for a very long time, and I've had to introduce fish and omegas into my life because my brain wasn't functioning properly. I feel that I'm
slowed you down.
Now I'm so much sharper than I was, and I think that I was at one point pretty malnutrition.
I don't know if that was intentional on their part, Plant-Based News, Klaus, but that was really funny to hear her say I'm so much sharper and then I was malnutritioned. Maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed. I mean, I guess she really had no chance to be right.
The first night after I had that salmon, I had a wet dream. I hadn't ejaculated in months.
Yeah, well, when I hear about these cases where someone has like a single serving of fish, their life just changes overnight. It's just physiologically not really possible. That screams to me placebo effect. Even if there was something they were missing in that food, you're just not going to fix it that quickly.
The best is still Lear Keith, the vegetarian myth. She could feel it in her cells when she ate. I think it was fish. It's so silly that people could just say that with a straight face. It's pretty much as bad as plants feel pain, right? Maybe worse.
Putting aside the stories of orgasms and other stories we hear, which, by the way, I'm not actually dismissing, but what I actually want to know is, why do we always hear about the fish and eggs first? Well, fish are essentially the polar opposite of us, and it can be hard for people to empathize with our scaly friends. Similarly, eggs seem to be easily distanced from exploitation.
So that is his argument. But then again, that doesn't make sense with what he was implying in the first place, that they don't really care about animals. They're calling them seafood and whatnot and calling them beef. And that's why they're no longer vegan. Is it that hard to just believe what people say when someone says, hey, I have IBS and it makes vegan hard? Is it that hard to just say, oh, okay, I understand. You can still be vegan. You can still promote a vegan diet and acknowledge that it can be very difficult for some people, if not impossible.
Similarly, eggs seem to be easily distanced from exploitation, as we see Bonnie Rebecca emphasizing how important humane eggs are.
Here are the eggs that I have at the moment. Usually I get them from the farmers markets, but if not, I get them from my local health food shop. And some things that I obviously look out for is organic, free range, but also over here, they will always tell you maximum amount of hens per hectare. So 600 hens per hectare is really good, and that's just something that I like to look out for. Means that they have a lot of room and it's really ethical, humane conditions.
I don't need to talk about the numerous cases of these ethical, humane raised animals, farms that were anything but. The reality is you don't know what's going on there, and as soon as you commodify a sentient being, you run the risk of cutting corners. The people you're buying from cutting corners. They are going to see those animals as property.
Now, being completely honest, many of us, or at least the majority of us, have probably had this romantic feeling that eggs can be ethical, whether it's when we go to a friend's house and they've got backyard eggs, or whether we buy into the humane egg marketing ploys. I just want to be super clear, eggs are always the product of exploitation. The majority of chicks sold to become backyard hens come from the same hatcheries that supply factory farms.
There are rescue chickens, just like there are rescue dogs and cats. Now, is that the majority of backyard hens? I seriously doubt it. In fact, we had neighbors who purchased chickens specifically because the eggs they laid were really pretty. Those like darkish, like blue or black or something. And yeah, they bought those chickens. And then I believe maybe they still do, would sell the eggs and maybe the chickens to other people. Yeah, I personally would not feel comfortable supporting them by buying eggs from them. But we have other neighbors who have had these same chickens, these same 7, I think, hens for years, and they have their names out and everything. It's really sweet. Would I purchase from them? No. I mean, number one, I hate eggs and I don't want eggs in my house at all. They're disgusting. But if I wanted to eat eggs, would I feel comfortable purchasing from them? I would feel absolutely better than just buying eggs from a store, free range or humanely raised or not. But no, I wouldn't feel 100% comfortable with it. Because again, as soon as you start selling a part of an animal or something an animal produces, you are commodifying them. And I couldn't know like 100% how those animals are being treated unless I was, close friends with the people or something. Point is, I think there are cases where eggs can be ethical. I don't think use is always abuse. I don't think taking eggs from a chicken who clearly does not give a shit about those eggs, I don't think that is abusive.
If the hatchery misidentifies the male chicks and they're sent out with the females, they'll likely be killed at just a few weeks old by the farm. And yes, this includes backyard farms and homesteaders. This is well demonstrated in this clip we found of a small backyard farmer who hatches her own eggs. And similar sentiment is shared by a community in the comments.
One of you two has been rejected. Who do you think it is? Wrong, it's you. You're staying, you're gone. Sorry. Wasn't sure about you, but I'm going to tip towards gone.
Time for some rooster noodle soup. Jesus Christ. That definitely baffles me. I don't understand how you can actually care for chickens and be around them on a daily basis and think of them that way, or even just eat chicken. Even if you're not breeding, even if you're just taking care of them, they're your pets, and maybe you eat their eggs, going on to eat chicken at all, I truly do not understand.
The ethical and moral inconsistencies among ex-vegans become apparent even before they go back to consuming animal products. Take Elise Parker, for instance, who bought a dog from a breeder while still claiming to be an ethical vegan. As we know, every purchase from a breeder condemns a shelter dog to death, which is definitively not in line with the principles of ethical veganism. We see a similar thing at Bonnie Rebecca when, almost immediately after going ex-vegan, she shows off an expensive knee wool rug and a feather-filled couch.
I've said that before too, where people say it's for their health, and then you see their what I ate today is a couple months later, and they're eating just like cookies with milk in them. Like, what? But again, I don't think it's helpful to demonize people. I think it's more likely what people like Dr. Melanie Joy and other activists talk about, this cognitive dissonance, and how we will do everything in our power to avoid that, to make ourselves feel philosophically, ethically consistent, that our beliefs and our actions align, and that we are not going against our own values. And like with fish, a wool rug and a feather-filled couch, it's very easy to just see those as a carpet and a couch. It's not a fur coat. It's not something that is obviously awful. And the eggs that say humane, 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 right? It's really easy, even for someone who was vegan and could make the arguments against those things. I think it's very easy to convince yourself you were wrong and this is fine, actually. But I don't think that's a slam dunk, oh, they stopped caring about animals and that's why they're no longer vegan.
John Venus.
Been amazing. You know, this is what I'm about. You know, vegan fitness is what I do. So for me, it's like a mini dream come true for sure.
He claimed the lifestyle shift was due to concerns around children consuming a plant-based diet.
I remember making a video about that and just saying, yeah, it's kind of weird. It kind of seems like he's using his kid to no longer be vegan. But also, you know, I went to John Venus's channel recently because he popped into my brain, and it doesn't seem like he's doing well. Doesn't seem like he has been for a long time. I mean, jumping from I'm no longer vegan to killing animals yourself, not just buying animal meat from a store, but actually killing animals, back to vegan, then back to, yeah, something's going on.
He claimed the lifestyle shift was due to concerns around children consuming a plant-based diet. Is there any merit to that, though?
I mean, there are some legitimate concerns around providing enough calories to promote growth. When you look at sort of the whole foods plant-based diet approach, you know, no oil, no added sugars and whatnot, it can be challenging for a child with a pretty small stomach to consume enough calories to support their growth. And yeah, if they're under eating, we might see them run into issues. If we look at some of the more recent studies, like the Vichy diet study out of Germany, you see that no, the kids, if they're eating same amount of calories or similar amount of calories to their omnivorous counterparts, they're getting similar amount of protein. If anything, they have a favorable micronutrient intake. They grow just fine. It's very compatible with what we're seeing out of the omnivores. If you look at the maybe few kids who were growing at, say, a slower rate, perhaps being qualified as stunted, they either had really short parents or they were eating very, very low amounts of calories.
I like him overall, just the two clips I've seen. Although it sounded like he maybe was promoting a whole food diet without added oil. That's pretty silly, and hopefully would not promote that for children. I don't think he's a pediatrician or anything, so he shouldn't be promoting a vegan diet for kids. But yeah, please don't try to feed your kids an oil-free diet, vegan or not. And I liked what he said about the comparison there. There was one study, I think I mentioned it in the part 2 or part 1 of the What I've Learned Vegan Diets Don't Work video, where they actually looked at nutritional status of vegans and vegetarians and omnivores. And that was their ultimate conclusion, that vegans are low on some things and omnivores are low on some things. Point is, to only focus on vegans and what we may or may not be deficient is pretty weird, considering the majority of Americans don't get enough fiber, barely eat any fruits and vegetables other than ketchup and fries. But that's for adults. When it comes to children, I think it is very different because, you know, if you have a kid who's not eating a lot of fiber, maybe they're dealing with constipation, which can be horrible for kids. I'm not saying it's not. We dealt with that with one of our children, but it's not the same as a vegan kid not getting B12 and suffering permanent damage or just not getting enough calories and dying. So personally, I am more concerned about vegan parents trying to feed their kids vegan diets.
A lot of these ex-vegans tend to go on extreme diets.
Something that I see a lot in that sort of group is that they'll go with a raw vegan diet, they'll do fasting. Once they start incorporating animal foods, they'll go to the carnivore side, like never in the middle.
They'll say that, well, I tried it all. I did the low-fat raw, I did high-fat raw, I did high-fat vegan, I did low-fat vegan, I did keto vegan, right? And it's like, what? Especially when they're YouTubers and you see their channel and they're like, what I ate today's, and it's like, when did you eat like that? Were you just lying the whole time, or are you lying now?
I think a good example is Giovanna Mendoza, who started off with raw veganism. 3 years in, she realized a raw vegan diet just wasn't sustainable for her and started incorporating cooked foods. Which is great to see because cooked foods like legumes are extremely beneficial for our health.
In fact, we have over the last about year or so, we've had 2 meta-analyses of prospective cohorts suggesting that legume consumption can lower the risk of cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality, with the benefits being seen up to even about 400 grams a week. But yeah, legumes, excellent source of protein, excellent source of minerals and fiber.
That reminds me of, again, what I talked about in the What I Learned, this obsession with like absorption, whether you're talking about iron or protein. There are factors in plants that make it a bit harder to absorb protein from plants. Yeah, that's true, but does that mean we can't get enough protein? No. Is there any indication that vegans don't get enough protein from a balanced vegan diet? No. And these foods are healthy, right? Eating more protein from beans, like what are the downsides? Maybe digestive issues if you're not used to eating a lot of beans. But once that's settled, like beans are incredibly healthy. There is no doubt they are healthier than meat.
Then we have Tim Sheep.
I tried whole food plant-based. I tried like high carb diet, which was the main one for athletes. I tried high fat vegan. I tried junk food vegan and try eating with no guilt. And then I got into other things like urine therapy, which for me, as the human who living that experience, I felt benefits from it for years.
High fat vegan, nah, man, doesn't work. Drinking your own pee, of course, amazing benefits. That's the pipeline. High carb vegan, low carb vegan, drink your own piss.
There are a lot of grandiose claims made about the like grass-fed organic meat and that. And when it comes to health, I mean, we know, at least with a fair degree of certainty, some of the main components of red meat in particular that are harmful. We know that the saturated fat content, perhaps the dietary cholesterol content to a degree, perhaps the heme iron as well.
And also possibly the compounds that are produced when we cook meat at high temperatures, which is typically how we cook meat. Most people are not steaming meat, which to me is the most damning evidence. It's not the observational data we have, which is largely what we have when we're talking about nutrition, which has lots of limitations, obviously. It's that the correlations we find via this observational data make sense when we're talking about animal products, because there are so many possible mechanisms for beef, let's say, to increase cancer risk, to increase cardiovascular risk. Whereas when we see a study that's like vegetarianism increases the risk for depression, how? The grass-fed beef thing is so funny to me because when you look at the actual evidence, there's very little difference between grass-fed and grain-fed beef. And also, I've seen the same people who say saturated fat is fine actually promote grass-fed beef for being lower in saturated fat. What?
And those are going to be inherent to grass-fed products as well. Now, if you're having really lean cuts, yeah, they're lower in saturated fat. Perhaps the fat content is a little bit different in grass-fed options versus conventional, but you're not getting rid of all of that. And we have multiple substitution analyses now where they model what it would look like to replace a relatively small amount of animal protein, let's say about 3% of calories from red meat protein in particular with plant protein, and we see reductions in risk of cardiovascular disease mortality, all-cause mortality. And that's independent of the fatty acid and fiber content.
I think the problem there is that the reductions we're talking about are small. Once we get to these really small changes in diet, it's diminishing returns. And I think if you explain that to people, most people just don't care that much. I mean, let's be real. Most people don't care about even the big differences in their health. That's why I just don't find the health argument for veganism convincing. It's not convincing to me as someone who does care more about health than the average person. I can't imagine it being convincing if you're really being honest about the possible effects. I can't imagine it being convincing to the average person. The main things that improve our health really have nothing to do with veganism.
So moving on, another thing we hear from Elise Parker is that the carnivore diet helped with digestion.
The digestion was honestly totally fine. In fact, it was way better than when I was vegan.
Some people do notice, at least in the short term, some improvements in symptoms, especially gut-related symptoms, when adopting a carnivore diet. I think it's totally because it is an elimination diet. If something is affecting you and you're eliminating most things, chances are you're going to hit whatever it is that is bothering you.
A lot of this video, almost done now, 13 minutes in, a lot of it is really good. The elimination diet comment is something I've said so many times. Like, yeah, if you have digestive issues, you're probably going to feel better when you're cutting out almost every single food.
People will suggest, well, I feel great, I'm in great shape, therefore this diet is healthy. And they're looking at that short-term, say, bump in their health. Doesn't tell us anything about long-term health. Not at all. I mean, you can look at smoking. Smoking might make someone feel good in the temporary, but it doesn't lead to better health outcomes.
Smoking is a good one because it often leads to weight loss. So yeah, in the short term, you could feel better. Maybe you're moving a lot better because you've lost a significant amount of weight. Smoking and Parkinson's disease, right? But no one would say, yeah, start smoking to reduce your risk for Parkinson's disease. Even if you have a familial history of Parkinson's disease, which I do. I still do not smoke. I almost said never have, but that's not true. I did steal some cigarettes once. Me and my friend, we stole from her mom. I don't know how she didn't find out. Like, we literally opened a new pack and then went outside and took like 2 puffs and we're like, oh my God, what do we do? We're going to get in trouble, and threw it in someone's garbage can. How do we not get caught?
The one thing I really want to stress is that if you're struggling with your health, seek out professional care, work with a doctor, get a diagnosis, hopefully, and then you can work on improving that. If that needs to be done through nutrition, then work with a nutrition professional, like a dietitian. You can perhaps get a referral from your doctor. When you're going to, social media for your health concerns or Googling, you're going to go down all sorts of rabbit holes. You're going to essentially be shooting in the dark. There isn't a need, as far as I'm concerned, to start eating animal products again. I haven't seen a condition where that would absolutely be necessary. Sure, there are conditions where it's perhaps more difficult, in which case, yeah, professional guidance might be the way to go. But again, just get that diagnosis and work with a professional. I just can't reiterate that enough.
I largely agree with that. I think the perhaps is a little softer than I would put it. Yes, virtually every case you could make a vegan diet work, but at some point, like if you have digestive issues, you have lots of different food allergies, like when you're down to eating just a few different foods, like, okay, it can be done if you're really paying attention to everything you're eating and tracking it. Yes, you could still do it. But am I gonna, yeah, you need to be vegan? I mean, you know, at some point, practical, like, is that actually practical? Is that actually fair to put that on someone and make them feel like they're a bad person for not doing that to stay vegan? I think what frustrates me most about this video is that I am in direct contact with, and I have been over the years, mostly via Patreon, with people who clearly care so much about animals, and they end up eating animal products, and they ask me for help because they're struggling with, usually it's something like IBS, and having really severe symptoms and not being able to make it work on a vegan diet and feeling distraught over it. Thank God my response has never been, I don't believe you. I think you really stopped caring about animals before and you're just using this as an excuse. Someone is literally paying me to keep doing what I'm doing to promote veganism and telling me they're struggling, and I'm supposed to believe, well, they all have this in common. They're all just eating extreme diets. They all just stopped caring about animals before. Like, they're all lying, basically. Not every person who goes vegan and quits vegan is Elise. I would argue that most of them probably are not. I just feel like, come out and say what you mean, which is just, you think they're all lying. You think they're all lying. You think they're all being babies and giving up too soon if they do have health conditions. Like, that's really the crux of this video. It sucks. And it's so stupid because the reality is people who are struggling, they don't have to go from vegan to carnivore, right? And they're not trying to. They just need to incorporate maybe a few animal products, and they can still eat a largely plant-based diet, which is the most important thing, right? You're making the most of the difference there in terms of impact on animals and the environment. And you just end up ignoring what they're talking about and ultimately not helping at all. Ignoring the IBS situation with Cosmic Skeptic, now you're just not talking about it at all and not offering any possible vegan solutions. How is that helpful? How is that good for the animals? It sucks that, what's his name? The doctor's name is in there, because I think most of what he had to say was really good. He seems like maybe a good source of vegan information, vegan nutrition information, but the overall theme of the video sucks. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope you liked it. Like the video if you did. Please subscribe if you want to see more stuff from me. It really does help out the channel, helps me continue to make videos like these, which don't take a lot of work. I literally just sat here and watched this and talked. I mean, I still have to edit, which takes a while, but it helps me make videos like these, which do take lots and lots and lots of work just for the scripting, just for the notes and researching process. And my patrons help, of course, so much. Patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. Thank you so much for those who do support the channel there. I do post 2 exclusive videos there a month for $5 plus patrons. I'm about to post, oh no, camera's dying. I'm about to post the one for April, the first one, talking about just stuff going on. And then I'll have the controversial one up in a couple weeks where I do a controversial topic that's not related to veganism. Yeah, that's it for me. Thanks again, guys. New video soon. How's my hair? I didn't wash it today. Oh, look at all the little hairs sticking up.